In 1923, a Sicilian bricklayer's wife named Concetta lived in a two-room tenement on Mulberry Street with her husband, 4 children, and 2 boarding paesani. Her husband earned $18 a week. $4 went home to Palermo every Friday without fail. What was left fed 8 people, kept them warm through winter, and put 37 cents into a tin can hidden behind a loose plaster board. By 1934, that tin had bought a small house in Brooklyn. Her neighbors assumed her husband had been promoted. He had not. The tin was simply older. They managed money differently, not with banks, but with rules carried across the ocean by women who had already survived hunger once. Those rules kept families intact through Prohibition, the crash of 1929, and quotas that cut their relatives off forever. We abandoned every one of them the moment the second generation decided that looking Italian was the same thing as looking poor. These were not tricks. They were a code. Never written down, never explained to outsiders. Number 18 cost less than a nickel and saved the average household more than $40 a year. Number 9 was practiced in every Italian basement until inspectors and supermarkets spent 40 years training families out of it. And number 2, the rule more Italian families enforced than any other, sent over $750 million back to Italy between 1900 and 1925. These 25 habits were not about being cheap. They were about never being caught with empty hands. Hit subscribe. Let us count down the 25 secret frugal tricks Italian immigrant families used to survive in America. Number 25. The Sunday sauce that fed a week. A Calabrian mother in Newark stood at her stove every Sunday for 4 hours. She made one enormous pot of tomato sauce with onions, garlic, a neck bone, a pork rib, and 2 sausages on a good week. The pot fed her family of 7 from Sunday through Saturday. Pasta with sauce on Sunday, cold meat over bread on Monday, sauce and beans on Tuesday, soup with stale bread on Wednesday. The pot cost 31 cents in 1924, and it fed 7 people for 7 days. It was not a meal, it was a week. Number 24, the stale bread drawer. A bricklayer's wife in the North End of Boston kept a wooden drawer for nothing but stale bread. She soaked it in milk for meatballs. She crumbled it into pancotto. She toasted it with garlic for frizzelle. She ground it into breadcrumbs for cutlets. The drawer saved her family $14 a year. In Sicily, throwing bread away was an insult to the saints. Hard bread was an ingredient with a slower clock. Number 23. The boarder in the kitchen. A Neapolitan family on Elizabeth Street kept 2 single men from their village sleeping on the kitchen floor. Each paid $3 a week for floor space and 2 meals. Rent was $11 a month. The boarders covered every cent of it and contributed $14 beyond. By 1910, more than 40% of Italian families in Lower Manhattan kept at least 1 boarder. The empty floor was a wage. Number 22. The tin behind the plaster. A stonemason in South Philadelphia kept a tobacco tin wedged behind a loose section of plaster. Every Friday night, before anything else, he placed the coins from his pocket inside it. He never counted it. He never opened it. In 1934, when his daughter married, he pulled out the wall and found $237, 8 months of wages. It paid for the wedding, the feast, and a sewing machine. The crash of 1929 wiped out the formal accounts of millions. It did not touch a single tin behind a single wall. The bank could fail. The wall could not. Number 21. The garden behind the tenement. A Sicilian widow in Brooklyn turned a patch of dirt measuring 14 by 18 feet into a working farm. Tomatoes climbed strings nailed to the fence. Basil grew in coffee cans on the fire escape. A fig tree smuggled from her cousin's yard gave her 2 harvests a year. Seeds cost 60 cents. The yield replaced $52 in groceries between June and October. Social workers in 1919 noted that Italian families ate better on $9 a week than Anglo families on $20. The fence was American. Everything inside it was Sicily. A Genoese laborer in Hoboken bought 60-pound crates of California Zinfandel every October for $2.40 a crate. He pressed them in his basement using a wooden press his father had brought from Italy. By December, he had 40 gallons of red wine for $14.40. Federal law during Prohibition allowed any head of household to make 200 gallons a year. California grape shipments to Italian neighborhoods grew 125% between 1920 and 1933. The law tried to take the wine away. The basement said no. Number 19. The knife that stayed sharp. A butcher's wife in the Bronx sharpened every knife on a single whetstone twice a week. A sharp knife cut clean, and a clean cut wasted no meat. The whetstone cost 22 cents in 1921. By 1945, it was still on the same shelf. Across her lifetime, it saved her over $40 in knives she never had to buy. The cheap tool was the durable tool. Number 18. The coffee grounds reused. A widow on Mott Street brewed her coffee twice. The first pot was for her husband before his shift. The second pot, made from the same grounds, was for her and the children. Half a pound of coffee her American neighbor finished in a week. She stretched across 2.5. The practice saved her $4 a year. The reused grounds were called Caffè Lungo. Italians had been drinking it for 2 centuries before American advertisers tried to shame them out of it. The second pot was the point. Number 17. The rendered pork fat. A Calabrian housewife in Pittsburgh bought a 5-pound slab of pork fatback every November for 31 cents. She rendered it slowly on the back of her stove. The result was 3-quart jars of strutto. Olive oil cost 48 cents a pound. Strutto cost 6 cents. The savings ran nearly $11 a winter. American doctors would later declare lard unhealthy. The grandmothers who cooked in it lived to 94. The cheap fat was the clean fat. Pattern break. In 1929, a Yale sociologist named Phyllis Williams spent 2 years among Italian families in New Haven. Italian families on factory wages of $14 to $22 a week were saving 19 to 31% of income. Native-born American families earning twice as much were saving less than 4%. Williams could not explain it through wages, education, or family size. The variable was culture. The Italian women were running a system the American women had never been taught. The study was published, ignored, and quietly buried. Number 16. The patched sheet. A seamstress in Providence kept her family of 6 in clean linen for 13 years on 3 sets of sheets. Every tier was darned. Every worn middle was cut out, and the strong sides were sewn together, turning the sheet, a skill she learned in Avellino at age 9. Dead sheets became dish rags. Dead dish rags became braided rugs. The savings amounted to $24. The torn sheet was not a tragedy. It was a project. Number 15. The salami hanging in the cellar. A Sicilian shoemaker in South Philadelphia bought a whole hog every January for $9. By February, his cellar held 38 pounds of cured salami, capicola, and soppressata hanging from oak beams. Cured meat at the corner store cost 38 cents a pound. His cost ran 24 cents. The savings ran $5.32. The seller was the bank. The salami was the interest. Number 14. The mended shoe. A Neapolitan father in Brooklyn fixed every shoe his children outgrew before passing it down. He had been a shoemaker's apprentice in Naples. Leather scraps came free from a cobbler who owed his cousin a favor. Across 4 sons and 12 years, scraps and nails saved his family $58, 3 months of rent. By 1920, more than 80% of Italian-American men in New York had at least one repair skill learned from their fathers. The father with a hammer was paid twice, once when he earned, once when he kept. Number 13. The trade across the hallway. 4 families in a single Mott Street tenement ran a quiet exchange that no inspector ever recorded. The Pellegrinos had a sewing machine. The Romanos had a bread oven. The Espositos had a cousin at the docks with damaged crates. The Marcassinis had a husband who could fix anything. Nothing changed hands for money. Each family reduced cash spending by $70 a year without earning a dollar more. The neighbor was infrastructure. Number 12. The twice-cooked beans. A Calabrian widow in Pittsburgh's Hill District soaked 1 pound of dried cannellini every Sunday night. By Monday, that pound had become 2.5 pounds, 3 different meals. Pasta e fagioli on Monday, beans and greens on Wednesday, cold bean salad on Friday. Dried beans cost 7 cents. The same protein in meat cost 41 cents. The discipline saved her household $19 a year. The bean was a strategy with a long shelf life. Number 11. The fennel from the roadside. A Sicilian grandmother in Yonkers picked wild fennel, dandelion greens, and chicory from empty lots and railroad embankments every spring. Other women called it embarrassing. She called it Tuesday. The greens fed her family 2 nights a week from April through June and cost nothing. The U.S. government in 1905 credited Italian immigrants with introducing dandelion, fennel, broccoli rabe, and escarole to the American diet. The empty lot was the produce aisle. Number 10. The coal stove that did 3 jobs. A foundry worker's wife in Cleveland kept her cast iron coal stove burning from October through April. The stove cooked. The stove heated. The stove dried laundry on a wooden rack pushed against its side. Coal cost her $4.20 a month. Her American neighbor, with a gas stove, radiator, and electric iron, paid $11.80 a month. The annual difference of $45.60 was 3 months of groceries. 1 fire, 3 jobs, a pattern break. A man in Bensonhurst named Tony Rossi died in 2018 at age 96. He arrived from Sicily in 1929. He worked in a leather factory for 42 years on wages that never exceeded $4.10 an hour. When his children opened his house, they found something none of them expected. He owned the brownstone outright. He owned a second house in Staten Island. He had $186,000 in a credit union account. His college-educated children, earning 4 times what he had earned, were drowning in mortgages and credit card debt. They had escaped his world. They had lost his arithmetic. Number 9. The tomato paste on the roof. A Neapolitan housewife in Boston's South End cooked 20 pounds of plum tomatoes down to a thick paste every August. She spread it on wooden boards and carried the boards to the tenement roof. 5 days of August sun reduced the paste to a dark concentrate called conserva. Rolled into balls and stored in oil, it flavored her cooking for 10 months. Public health officials in 1919 warned Italian women that drying tomatoes on rooftops was unsanitary. The women looked at the officials, looked at their children, and went back to the roof. The August sun was free fuel. Number 8. The espresso pot, not the diner. A pipe fitter in Philadelphia carried his lunch and coffee to work every day for 41 years. Bread, cheese, salami, an apple in a tin pail. Coffee made before dawn in a Neapolitan flip pot. His co-workers ate at the diner. A coffee and sandwich cost 35 cents in 1928. Across his career, he saved more than $3,500. He spent that money on the down payment for the row house his great-grandchildren still own. The sandwich at the bench was a house. Number 7. The sewing circle in the front room. 5 Italian women on Carmine Street met in one apartment every Wednesday from 1922 onward. They brought mending baskets, fabric scraps, and one pot of coffee made from second grounds. They mended each other's clothes and turned old garments into new ones, in combinations no single woman could have managed alone. Each family saved $34 a year. 5 women with needles outproduced the factory. A Calabrian carpenter in Boston could not afford the $12 a month in tuition at the parish school, so he built bookshelves for the rectory instead. He repaired the priest's house. He replaced rotted window frames in the basement. His labor was valued at $108 by the parish treasurer, exactly enough to cover his 3 children's tuition, with $36 left over. The trade tuition arrangement was widespread in Italian Catholic parishes from 1900 through the 1950s. The skill was the tuition. Number 5. The boarder who stayed 12 years. A widow in Hoboken named Maria took in a single boarder in 1919, a Sicilian stonemason named Vito, who paid $4 a week for a parlor bed and 2 meals. Vito stayed 12 years. When he finally married and moved out in 1931, Maria had collected $2,496. The money paid the mortgage on her brownstone. The brownstone is still in her granddaughter's name. Statistics from 1920 record that 38% of widowed Italian women in major cities supported themselves primarily through boarder income. Maria did not need the government. She had a parlor and a paesano with a job. Number 4. The letter from Italy. A Sicilian father in Buffalo wrote one letter home every 2 weeks for 31 years. Inside each letter was a money order, never larger than $4, never smaller than $2. Across 31 years, the letters carried roughly $2,800 to his mother and unmarried sister. The money paid for medicine, his sister's dowry, and the small stone house his cousin still lives in. Italian remittances between 1900 and 1925 totaled over $750 million. The money sent away was the money the family at home learned not to spend. Number 3. The daughter's dowry. A Calabrian mother in Newark spent 14 years preparing her daughter's corredo, an oak chest filled with hand-embroidered linens, sheets edged in lace, towels she had made 1 stitch at a time after the children were asleep. Material cost ran $19 across 14 years. Market value at the wedding in 1931 was $340. The chest furnished the new household completely. Not a sheet, not a towel, not a tablecloth was purchased. The dowry was a bridge between 2 budgets. Number 2. Pay Italy first. A Neapolitan mason in Yonkers followed one rule above all others. The first dollars of every paycheck went into the envelope addressed to his mother, not the last, not the leftovers, the first. In 1921, he earned $22 a week. He sent $4. By 1934, he earned $38. He sent $5. The amount changed, the order never did. By 1962, he owned a house, a vacation cottage, and had put 3 children through college without borrowing a dollar. For 26 years, without one exception. Pay yourself first was a phrase American advisors started using in the 1980s. Italian fathers had been paying Italy first since 1885. Number 1. Spend less than you earn. That is the whole rule. No corredo, no sauce pot, no tin behind the wall, no system at all. The unglamorous, unfashionable, unbreakable discipline of spending less than came in every week, every month, for decades, until the gap between earned and spent became the foundation of everything that followed. A paid-off house, a daughter sent to nursing school, a son who did not have to lay brick like his father. Concetta on Mulberry Street was not running 24 systems at once. She was practicing one with such fierce consistency that 24 others arranged themselves around it. She spent less than her husband earned, every week of every year for 16 years. The tin behind the plaster was simply the receipt. None of these habits required a degree, an advisor, or a bank. They required attention, the willingness to look at money honestly, without shame and without fantasy. The generation that crossed the ocean understood something modern America has spent 70 years trying to unlearn. That comfort is not the same as security. That convenience is not the same as freedom. That looking American was not the same as being unbreakable. The grandmothers in black on Mulberry Street did not look prosperous. They were prosperous in the only way that ever mattered. They could not be reached by hunger, by eviction, by the slow dread that settles into a family when the next month is already lost. These were not the habits of poor people. These were the habits of people who refused to be poor again. Concetta had crossed an ocean for the right to feed her children. She was not going to let an unwatched dollar take it back. The tin is still there, behind some plaster wall in some renovated building. The math has not changed. What you keep still matters more than what you earn. Unreachable,